This week's parashat Korah, we have the great Korah rebellion. Korah and his 250 men wage a war, major rebellion against Moshe Rabbeinu, against Aaron Kohen. Kulanu kedushim, we're all holy. Why can't we share the Kohen Gadol? Why can't we all be like Aaron? Korah says, I come from a religious family too. I'm a holy family of Kehat. And look at all these other 250 men. We're all holy. Why can't I be Kohen Gadol also? Maybe we should share the power. Maybe there shouldn't be any hierarchy at all. So I heard a very cool idea from Rabbi Kahn in his Dvar Torah last year on the parasha, where he actually takes the story of Korah and puts it, zooms out a little bit and puts it in the context of last week's parasha and this week's parasha. What happened in last week's parasha? Last week's parasha, we have the sin of the Meraglim. We have the spies come back, give the Lashon Hara against the land of Israel. HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes along and makes a decree. That whole generation has to die in the desert. Now, right after that, we have a story of a guy who's mekoshesh etzim, a guy who breaks the branches on Shabbat. And the guy breaks Shabbat. Comes along the Gemara, and the Gemara says, one of the rabbis in the Gemara gives us a name. You know who that guy was? That guy was Tzlofchad. And Tosfot comes along, and Tosfot explains, you know why Tzlofchad did it? He did it l'shem shamayim. He did it for the sake of heaven, because after the sin of the spies, after the whole Jewish people realized they're going to die in the desert, there was this sense of hopelessness. The people lost hope. What are we here for anymore? What's life all about? We're all just going to die in the desert. Is there really holiness? Is there Kedusha anymore? Is there anything for us to do anymore? This certain level of depression, what is there for? What is meaning anymore? Why should we keep any mitzvot? So therefore, Tzlofchad went to this kamikaze mission, and he broke Shabbat in front of everybody, and after being warned that he would die, but everyone would realize that even if they have 38 years in the desert now, there still is a mitzvah to walk around, to do mitzvot, to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There still is Kedusha. He did it l'shem shamayim, and then the Mekoshesh Etzim is killed, and everybody realizes, whoa, we still have mitzvot. What's the very next mitzvah HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us? The mitzvah of tzitzit. We have the mitzvah of tzitzit with the techelet string together with the white strings coming together, and we know that one of the special rules when it comes to tzitzit is that you're allowed to do sha'anez. You're allowed to mix wool and linen when it comes to tzitzit. There's only one other time with clothing that you're allowed to mix the wool and linen, and that's with the clothing of the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol had clothing that was also a mixture of sha'anez, a mixture of wool and linen. And what do we know about the Kohen? The Kohen Gadol, he's the big kadosh. So now HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying, I'm going to give you guys a mitzvah. Yes, the Tzlofchad was correct. You guys are still holy. There still is kedusha in the world. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to give you a clothing that's similar to the Kohen Gadol's clothing. I'm going to give you a clothing that allows sha'anez, because you guys are a mamlechet kohanim. You guys are a nation of priests, a nation of holy kohanim. You guys are all holy. I'm going to give you the mini sha'anez mitzvah, the daily mitzvah in daily life, out there in the world, outside of the Beit HaMikdash. You could wear the sha'anez clothing of the tzitzit. You have the ability to reach that holiness yourself on the individual level, which is perfect for where Korah comes in our parsha, because Korah comes along and as Chazal tell us in the Midrash, Vayikach Korah, he took the tchelet, he took the tzitzit, he came from last week's parasha and he said, okay, so let us all wear the beged shekulo tchelet. If we're all holy, if we all could wear the sha'anez, kulanu tzadikim, kulanu kedushim, we're all holy. We should all be able to be Kohen Gadol right now. So that's the next logical conclusion. Okay, we went from this depression, there's no holiness at all, to Tzlofchad teaching us, to the mitzvah of tzitzit. Now we're all Kedushim. So now the conclusion is, Korach says, so we're all holy. Kulanu Kedushim. We should all be able to be Kohen Gadols also. And here HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to say no. There still is a hierarchy. Yes, you have the ability to taste the mitzvah of the Kohanim. You have the ability, you are a Mamlechet Kohanim, but there still is a hierarchy. And then eventually at the end of the story, we have the test of Aharon and his mateh. Listen to my other recording about Aharon's mateh. But we have Aharon's mateh that it says that that the prachim, that the flowers came off, and the tzitz, and then the beginning of the budding flowers came on, the shkedim and the almonds came on. So what is this concept of perach and tzitz? So perach, so he says the Kli Yakar, perach might hint to the pirchei keuna, the younger kohanim. The tzitz, what is it tzitz? What do budding flowers relate to? They relate to the tzitz of the Kohen Gadol. There's another word for tzitz. Tzitz are these beginnings of the flowers. Tzitz also means the Kohen Gadol used to wear on his headpiece. His headpiece was this golden medallion that said Kodesh LaHashem, holy to God, and it was tied together with techelet strings. He had the patil techelet, the techelet strings on his forehead. Says the Kli Yakar, that's his nezer. That was the crown of the Kohen Gadol. It's true. All of us are zocheh to wear the techelet. All of us are zocheh to wear the tzitzit. Mamlechet kohanim. We are all kulanu kedushim. We are all holy. But there is a hierarchy. We, the average person, wears it on our simple clothing, on our tzitziot, down below. But the Kohen Gadol gets to wear his techelet on his forehead, on his head. It's his crown. And that's demonstrating the hierarchy that the Kohen Gadol is a different level. There is, even though we're all holy, there's a hierarchy in the keuna. There is a Kohen Gadol. Korah got it wrong. It's true, we're all holy, but there are limits to how each one relates. All of us being holy doesn't mean that we're all exact exactly the same. Rabbi Khan says one last deep idea that we've mentioned many times in the past, that where does the prohibition of shatnez come from? We spoke about the exceptions to the rule. We have the Kohen Gadol who can wear it, because the Kohen Gadol, Aaron, is Ohev Shalom, Rodef Shalom. He knows how to bring the shalom together. We can do it when we have the mitzvah of the tzitzit. The tzitzit tells us when you can makir your chavero, when you see that the difference between the white and the blue. That's ben adam l'chavero. And we mentioned in the past that the shatnez is also connected to b'avta kamocha, because one after the other in the halachot. Says the midrash that where did the prohibition come from? From Cain and Hevel. We had Cain, who was the pishtan, was the linen person, because he was the guy with the ground, and we had ourselves Hevel, who was the wool, he had the sheep, and ultimately because of the sinach, because of the hatred that took place over there, Hashem says we got to separate the two. But part of the issue you find in some of the more Kabbalistic writings is that Cain thought he should be the Kohen Gadol. He should be the high priest. Why doesn't Hashem accept my korbanot? But there seems to have been some kind of a psul. He wasn't allowed to be a Kohen, and that was part of his mistake. And ultimately he kills his brother. It leads to the Isur of Sha'anez, and then it says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu kicks him out, and he gets all worried, and he comes to Hashem, I'm going to be killed, the animals are going to kill me, I don't know what to do. So Hashem puts an ot on his forehead. Now we spoke in the past about this ot, maybe about a horn, maybe about a tefillin, but there's another opinion in the Midrash that says, what was the ot that was put on his forehead, on his metzach? He got an ot of tzarat. Now what do we know about tzarat? Tzarat is the punishment that kicks you out of the Beit HaMikdash, that takes away the Kedusha. It's the most opposite of a Kohen. You can't come anywhere near the Beit HaMikdash. It was a statement to Cain, I'll protect you, but you have to recognize who you are. You have to recognize that you are not a Kohen Gadol. You are not even a Kohen. You got to be separated a little bit from the Kedusha, and that's why in the same place where the tzitz normally goes, that represents the hierarchy, you're going to have tzarat to represent you're on the lower rung of the ladder. So which again brings us back to our Aharon, because the real statement of Aharon, how do we know that he's supposed to be the Kohen Gadol? Because he's the one wearing the tzitz. He has the techelet not on his clothing, but on his forehead, and that's hinted to when his staff brings forth the tzitzim, it brings forth these little budding flowers to represent that as well. Shabbat Shalom.